All the footage you're going to be seeing for this entire review was streamed live on my Twitch channel and is my team competing in the US Inkling Open tournament. I will be uploading that entire stream VOD to my channel later this week, so look forward to that in the future. New patches for both of the games I do patch reviews for were revealed the same day, and I'll be releasing the reviews on the same day as well, so be sure to look out for the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 patch review after you watch this one. Splatoon 2 3.0 is here. We got Rank X, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for the Octo expansion, which is probably going to come alongside a balance patch, but not going to be a main patch itself. It might be the patch for that month, also comes out with the expansion, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But we did get 3.0. Basically, the Octo expansion is probably not going to come with 4.0 is what I'm saying, because that doesn't seem to be affecting multiplayer much. But 3.0 is changing a lot of things. The first thing is adding a huge amount of new gear, 2 new songs, the ability to get Callie to show up in single player if you fulfill certain conditions. It doesn't say what it is, but I'm assuming it's 1000%ing it or 100%ing it with each weapon. So that I've done months ago, so that's not a problem. X rank is now available. I don't need to go into detail on that. That's in the announcement fine. And now, when we get into the Splatfest changes, we're already running into the problems where they used a different translator for these patch notes compared to all the other times. A translator who appears to have never actually played a Splatoon game before, and seems to be new at translating because some of these translations are very, very bad, and some of them are outright incorrect. So I'm actually using a couple fan translations that I found on Twitter for some of the things that are incorrect. So the first thing is, in Splatfest, the first bullet point for that is correct. When Splatfest results are revealed, voting percentages and win percentages will now display to the 100th digit. So it's basically an extra digit in the display, because I don't know, I didn't see last Splatfest. They might have been tied down to the same 10th place, or 10th place, so they wanted to do the hundreds. But the English patch note says, when playing multiple solo Splatfest matches with few allies, your Splatfest power will not decrease when losing. Now Splatfest power will not decrease when in the situation for an even shorter duration. That doesn't make any sense at all. What it's actually supposed to say is, if someone DCs in your Splatfest lobby on your team, they can DC for longer without you losing points, if you lose because of it. That's a very bad translation. We'll just leave it at that, and there will be more soon enough. Okay. Changes to regular battle. When playing multiple matches with few allies, your vibe meter will not change when you lose, so if you get DC'd multiple times in a row, your little weapon vibe meter thing won't go down if you lose because of it. And then here we go with, there's a lot of just bug fixes in multiplayer, so I'm going to skim through some of these, but, because obviously the balance stuff is the most important stuff, but, ink tank display to mistakenly appear empty when in squid form when low on ink. Fixed an issue, I guess they just increased the minimum value of ink in the tank in squid form. Fixed an issue causing players to occasionally ascend slope terrain faster than normal by facing the slope and pressing B repeatedly while proceeding. Okay. You can't be detected through walls by players aiming reticles, which is nice, because I've gotten sniped through walls, before. Here's another one. The English notes say, fixed an issue incorrectly extending super jump distance when attacking with certain weapons just prior to landing during a super jump. That is terrible, because there is no way to extend super jump distance, because you know exactly where you're jumping to when you key in a super jump. It means that when attacking right before landing from a super jump, there is a bug causing certain weapons' ranges to be drastically increased. They got rid of that bug. There is no extending super jump thing you can do because that makes no sense. Fix an issue causing players to enter stage objects when the landing point of their super jump was surrounded by obstacles. Okay, so there's less clipping stuff, which is good, less out-of-bounds shenanigans. Fixed an issue causing the landing or impact indicator to not display correctly when readying a sub-weapon for use while facing a horizontal ceiling. Okay. Fixed an issue causing shots fired from blasters to not ink certain walls. That's good. I like being able to paint with the weapons I play. Fixed an issue causing shots fired from chargers by charging for a brief moment when changing from squid to kid form to not fire in the direction of the aiming reticle and to disappear immediately instead. Okay, I guess that was a partial charge error. Fixed an issue causing shots from sloshers to incorrectly pass through certain pieces of stage terrain and ink the ground just beyond that terrain. Okay, less clipping with sloshes themselves. Where was I? Fix an issue causing the hit animation of a sloshing machine shots to not display in the correct location when the spiral portion of the shot hit placed objects like splash walls directly. Okay, just a visual error. Fix an issue causing an unnecessary hit animation to display when a curling bomb slid across a sponge. Okay, I guess it played hit markers when you did that before, and they fixed that. Fix an issue causing sponges to not change size when hit with the curling bomb on a particular size. Okay, just another regular bug thing. Fix an issue making it difficult to place mines on top of the tower in tower control, which is cool because mines were actually buffed this patch, so that makes them even more useful. Here's another terrible translation. When attacking a player performing a splashdown special just prior to their descent, the condition of the attacking player's internet connection determined whether or not damage would be dealt. Damage will now always be dealt correctly regardless of connection condition. Due to this change, the situation will no longer occur in which damage is dealt regardless of whether or not the attacked player appears to take damage or not just prior to starting their descent when performing a splashdown special. This is an extremely clumsy translation, possibly not even grammatically correct, and I'm not even going to bother testing that, and it doesn't explain anything. Basically, if one person's connection was bad, you could sometimes deal damage to someone in a splashdown if you don't kill them, and it would display as them having taken damage. Now, they'll always take damage, basically. As, I think that's it. Is that it? Where is it? Okay, never mind. That is correct. So, after that, fix an issue causing players using brushes who performed an attack while simultaneously activating a splashdown during super jump to not perform the splashdown. Okay, I've never touched a brush in this game, so, okay, good for you brush mains, if you still exist. Fix an issue causing explosion damage from an inkjet shots to not register when the shots appear to not hit on the screen of the attacking player, but did not appear to hit on the screen of the player being attacked. Is this another wrong one? This is another wrong one. Let's go down to the inkjet one. Where is it? Okay, it's if an inkjet shot is not registered as a direct on the player's side but is on the opponent's side, splash damage does not also register on the opponent's side, because if you direct someone with something, it doesn't explode and do splash damage. Again, terrible, terrible translation. Fix an issue causing a stingray's firing animation to continue to display on the screens of other players when getting on an ink roll while using the stingray. Visual bug, okay. Fix an issue causing an Inkstorm's raining animation to not display in the correct location when swimming through its area of effect. Visual bug. Actually extremely helpful, because you can sort of actually see where the Inkstorm is now. Climbing surfaces with a baller where inkable walls connect to non-inkable walls will now be easier, okay. Technically a baller buff, but not significant enough to be in the balance changes. Fix an issue causing Respawn Punisher to not take effect when defeated by an enemy with that gear ability while the player also had Respawn Punisher equipped. I didn't know that bug existed. I probably talked about that in my Respawn Punisher video, but that was a bug apparently, so that's fixed. Change the effect of Respawn Punisher so that when a player has it equipped, allies splatted by the explosion from the Rainmaker after its time limit runs out will not suffer the effects. So you can't suicide blow up the Rainmaker to Respawn Punish people anymore, which makes sense. When an opponent who splats you is using the Respawn Punisher or Haunt and the effects of those gear abilities is activated, that activation will stand out clearly on the screen while waiting to respawn. So, it's just, hey, you now know as I guess it highlights the ability in their gear list, so you more know as a fact what it is or something. I don't know. And next is, I should not have tabbed away from the actual patch notes while I was talking about this. Fix an issue in tower control matches, causing players caught between a stage terrain feature and the metal grating portion of the tower's platform to be pushed inside the stage feature. Clipping issue fixed, that's good. Fix an issue in Rainmaker matches, causing the explosion animation from the Rainmaker shots to appear after the actual explosion when its shots hit a splash wall or expanded umbrella. I'm not sure if that's a visual bug or if the actual hitboxes were changed too because of that, but it's fixed and that's good. Fix an issue in Clam Blitz, causing the barrier to be destroyed at the same time the goal descended when clams landed on top of the goal in its raised position. This is a slight error. It's supposed to say power clam, so if you threw a power clam on top of the goal while it was raised up and then it drops down, it would immediately pop it. They fixed that for obvious reasons. Fix an issue in Clam Blitz, causing clams tossed by other players to not be picked up when touched when the player's internet connection quality is poor. They didn't fix Clam Blitz's glaring actual flaws with like super jumping with clams, but it's less buggy at least, and that's good. Fix an issue in climbless matches, allowing players to remain on the cover in the upper part of the goal. Also good. Fix an issue in Starfish main stage where placement of obstacles could be slightly off, causing slight asymmetry between two sides of the map. I never even heard of that, so it must have been very slight, but that's good. Fix an issue in Sturgeon Shipyard, causing bubbles from the bubble blower that explode beneath the bridge to mistakenly ink the walkway on the bridge. That's also good, you can't cheese it in zones. Fix an issue in Sturgeon, causing the surfaces of the drawbridge to not count on the turf map when inked at a specific time while in motion by bombs or other objects. Okay, that's good, so turfing now works correctly. Granted, it's just for turf war, but it's still good. But after that is fix an issue in Manta Maria during Rainmaker, allowing players to make their way deep into enemy turf from above the goal. I guess you could get into the platform right below their spawn that you're not supposed to just by using the goal, which, okay, good, that's fixed. Fix an issue in Piranha Pit, allowing players to make their way deep into enemy. Okay, exact same issue. Fix an issue, but not on Rainmaker. Fix an issue in Piranha Pit, causing the ripples created by moving through ink while swimming on conveyors to appear in the wrong location. Visual bug. Fix an issue in Piranha Pit, allowing players to move inside certain stage features from specific corners on those stage features. Fix clipping issue. Good. Okay, so splash walls and sprinklers don't break immediately in front of the base of a conveyor belt. That's good. And they also won't break when they hit the end of a conveyor belt. And last thing, fix an issue in Piranha Pit during tower control matches, allowing players to jump off the tower in the area of the third checkpoint, reach an ink rail, and also get into an enemy's thingy thing, or spawn area. I'm going to go through Salmon Run spectator mode and other changes before the balance stuff, as I usually do. Salmon Run is also bug fixes. You could clip into the stage. Hit markers wouldn't show up when attacking a steel eel's weak point when there are multiple in the same area. You could get locked out of picking up golden eggs if there was a DC and multiple players tried to pick up the same egg when someone DC'd. That's good. And fix an issue preventing players from rescuing a downed friend, even when hitting them directly with a splat bomb if connection quality is poor. So they're changing, like, low connection related stuff, which kind of worries me, honestly, because that makes me start believing that the Switch Online service won't actually be dedicated servers for Splatoon, because if they knew it was coming in September, they wouldn't be fixing all these connection-related bugs unless they just wanted to do it for quality of life. But, I don't know. It's a little wishy-washy on that, but I am still slightly worried now. In spectator mode, you could get a sound effect to randomly play that's submerging an ink sound effect that's gotten rid of if you're the one spectating. Fix an issue causing hit markers for the Stingray to not display correctly when switching between the perspective of a player using the Stingray and other perspectives. Okay, visual bug. And this is the most important change. When a player has reached X rank in the ranked battle mode that they are currently playing, pressing in the L and R sticks at the same time while in the lobby will cause them to strike a special pose. I'm assuming it's the just the X pose that they use to first show off rank X. And that's basically, if the active ranked battle mode you're rank X in, you can do that. Fix an issue in the Style tab of the Equip menu screen where the order of hairstyles for the girl differed from the order in which they were displayed in player settings. Okay, just a visual bug. And now, let's go from special point requirements, because those are the lowest buffs and nerfs. Luna Neo got a 10-point buff, Clash Neo got a 10-point buff, Zinc got a 10-point buff, Vanilla Blaster got a 20-point nerf, unfortunately. Slosher Deco got a 20-point nerf, which is pretty funny. And Vanilla Splatling got a 20-point nerf as well, so there's a slight amount of Stingray nerfing as well, plus there's also just a legitimate Stingray nerf later on. Then let's move into gear abilities. Actually, no. The most broken thing is in the gear abilities, so we'll skip that for now. 96 and 96 Deco decrease trajectory variance of the first shot while also increasing time required to reach maximum shot variance and firing continuously. Basically, it's now slightly more accurate, which is great for me. Luna now has increased ink coverage by your feet, so you can swim just by shooting with Luna a little easier. L3 is now more likely to ink the area around your feet. Squeezer got a slight range buff and ink consumption buff when using the continuous fire for the shorter range version. Dynamo is another really bad translation error. Where is the Dynamo thing in the correct patch notes? There we go. The English version says, increased number of ink droplets generated by a horizontal swing, also decreasing time before turf is inked or attacks land. and increased spread of ink droplets generated by horizontal swing. There is no decreasing time in this. This was a pure translation mistake. It's the space and ink dealt after vertical dynamo swings. It's more consistent, so there's less gaps in both the ink box and the hit box. Plus, it also just inks more, so Dynamo can paint better, can paint more consistently, and kill more consistently, so it might actually be kind of good now. Who knows? Fling's adjusted distance at which damage from a horizontal swing begins to decrease, so it didn't say in or out. It does say increased distances at which damage exceeding 150 are dealt by roughly 12%, so it does look like it's out. Its lethal range is now significantly further. Ink Brush. Increased overall spread of ink generated by swinging brush, with the spread of ink closest to the player seeing the biggest increase, making it easier to ink consistent areas of turf. So that's good. Ink Brush can now ink a little better. Unfortunately, doesn't make it less broken in Clamblitz, but it's Clamblitz, so what can you... Well, I don't know. Without fixing the fundamentals of the mode, they can't really change that too well. All chargers will now ink the player's feet when firing. I don't know why this wasn't done to begin with. Unfortunately, it didn't change anything besides the Bamboozler. All chargers except Bamboozler got this buff. Bamboozler also got... Bamboozler got a 5-point damage buff instead, so it does still have an increase. It's just not the same one as everyone else's, since I guess it did always ink around the feet or something. Not sure. Gloogadoolies got an increased firing range after dodge rolling, so Gloogas already have that special feature where they get the damage buff and stuff after dodge rolling, so that it shoots further too. Vanilla Brella, or Vanilla and Sorella, it's just base Brella. Increased area covered by ink droplets when shots hit a surface. I guess that means it inks more per shot. Not 100% sure, since that could just apply to walls, but it looks like it just paints better, which is good. Tentabrella, increased area covered by ink at player's feet when the Brella is open. That's good. It's sort of the same buff the Chargers got. Increased area of ink coverage generated when the umbrella portion is launched, so we can paint a wider swath with that. And decreased time for the umbrella after it's destroyed or launched from 6 to 5 seconds. So that's good, you can get your shield out better, so it's a little more defensive and stuff. Splash Wall, decreased time after using before ink recovery begins by roughly a second. So that's a pure buff. If you have basically any weapon with it, you'll be able to start shooting more after that. It's now possible to create a wall when a wall you've created already exists in the stage. It will cause the old one to disappear though, so that's pretty good though. And decreased least amount of time for wall to open after being placed by roughly 15 frames, a full quarter of a second. So it decreases the time until the wall opens when placing it on either flat ground or facing a downward slope by a full quarter of a second. And when facing an upward slope or anything else that causes it to be placed immediately, there will be no change in how quickly the wall opens. So your walls come out faster. I'm going to be less bitching about, oh, I got killed through my splash wall when it was just someone shot me before it was deployed now. Which is good, because I like my splash walls actually being useful. Squid Beacon, 20% durability buff, so you won't be two-shotting it as much with like your gals and whatever. And because of that, damage dealt by certain types of attacks has also changed. Stingrays got a 58% damage nerf to it, so you'll need to hit it a lot more to do the same amount of damage you were doing before, plus the Stingray got nerfed, plus it also has 20% more HP. Ink Storms now deal 2/3 less damage. They only do 1/3 the amount of damage they did before, which is ridiculous. So you're gonna have to like intentionally place an Ink Storm on top of a beacon to destroy it or something. I don't even know. Nozzle Noses, Blasters, and Vertical Swings from any rollers did have damage buffs done to beacons, all by 20%. Doesn't technically... It sort of evens out the HP buff, basically. Ink Mines. When the R button is pressed and held, the player is now able to go into squid form immediately by pressing ZL even before the ink mine's fully set. So you can now sub-strafe with ink mines, which is good because you can do that, place it on the tower with the better chance of it actually working correctly, and then sub-strafe straight off the tower and be completely safe. Curling Bombs. Decreased radius of ink coverage and damage dealt by the explosion when R is pressed and immediately released. So that seems like a nerf. But the bomb now grows in size the longer you hold R, increasing both ink coverage and lethal radius. So you can basically increase the size of your curling bombs by holding them down, And the amount of time before ink recovery begins after use is also decreased in proportion to how long the R button is held, so you'll start recovering ink faster the larger the bomb you throw. Sprinklers got a pretty sizable buff in ink usage. They now only use about 60% of the tank. Decreased degree to which less area is inked proportional to distance between sprinkler and terrain floor and placed in a location with a different height than the surrounding terrain. So I believe it turfs better when not placed flat on the ground. Increased durability by roughly 20%, and also had the same durability damaged from different weapon classes related changes that the beacon did. Decreased range of ink droplets and area of coverage during time after placement until it begins to weaken. So it looks like it has less range, but is better at inking that specific range and lasts longer. Yeah, it looks like that's it. And that, or it actually starts shooting further once it starts weakening, but it turfs less frequently and less consistently. Curling Bomb Launcher. Since the curling bombs were buffed, the bombs in the launcher will always be the default size. You can't grow them, but the area of ink coverage while curling bombs are traveling has been increased slightly. So it actually doesn't say if it's going to be the default size or the largest size. The way it says the area of ink coverage and damage dealt by curling bomb explosions has been increased implies that it's going to be either the median size or the largest size, because it looks like that the curling bombs in general are like the size they are now is going to be the smallest size. So this looks like that it'll output the same size consistently, but some larger size, not the default. Stingray, reduced damage by 10%. It's not going to nerf it into the ground, but it makes it a lot more bearable. And the second bullet point is, Stingray's beam will now pass through the spawn point barrier when used within the barrier around your team's spawn point. This looks like it's saying that you can kill someone who's just respawning if you shoot the Stingray from your spawn point. But say it with me, mistranslation. It's supposed to say that if you try using it when inside your spawn point, you'll be pushed out of it. So you can't just sit in spawn and use Stingray completely safe from things like other Stingrays. You will always be at least slightly vulnerable when using it. And then, the specifications for certain gear abilities have been changed as well, which is the last thing we're going to talk about. Ink Recovery up, increased effect while in kid form by roughly 6%, that's good. Special Saver, made effect more likely to occur even when used with fewer than the maximum stacked Special Saver abilities. Effective gear ability used when maximum stacked Special Saver ability is the same. This isn't so much a mistranslation. Actually, no, this is a complete mistranslation. This was the first thing that was like, hey, this person has definitely never played Splatoon. It doesn't make sense logically if you know how the game works. It's basically they tweaked the diminishing returns equation for Special Saver, where you can get bigger buffs for less gear, or for less slots of Special Saver, but the maximum amount of buff you can get from it is still the same. So it was buffed in small quantities, but diminishing returns for larger quantities are now actually made even more severe, because it has the same maximum. Ink Res up. Improved effect of reducing maximum amount of damage dealt by stepping in opponent's ink. So you can you'll now take even less damage from stepping in enemy ink, and the speed at which damage is dealt is also slower. We're going to skip over Opening Gambit for a second because it's broken. Haunt. Opposing players marked with Haunt will now incur the penalties of Respawn Punisher. So, if they're haunted, like if they're marked from being haunted and someone kills them while they're still marked, they will also have an increased respawn time and more special reduction. So that's a huge buff. Thermal Ink got its duration doubled to 12 seconds, so that's pretty good. I still don't know if many people are actually going to be using it, but it's still actually really decent. I might start running it on Blaster now that I think about it, so that's pretty cool. Respawn Punisher now nullifies 5% more of quick respawn. Okay, that's not a huge deal, but it's trying to throw Respawn Punisher a bit more into the mix. And actually this does also apply to the Haunt nerf too, or to the Haunt buff, since those are changed at the same time. Haunt applies Respawn Punisher, so it also applies the buffed Respawn Punisher. Drop Roller. After it's used, the player will receive the effects of run speed, swim speed, and ink res for roughly 3 seconds. It doesn't specifically state this, but I'm assuming it's 1 main's worth. That might be pretty good for dualies, or for where you're just trying to drop roll in to get around someone. You can snake around them better, because if you do that late game, they're already used to whatever speed you're running at, but since you got this buff, they might miscalculate and stuff like that, so that's pretty good. It's not huge. I don't expect Drop Roller to become meta now, but it's there. It's making it more useful. Comeback. Decrease the boost to stats while comeback is active from 1.2 times the value of the main to 1 times the main. So, the abilities that comeback provided, it used to give you 1.2 times worth of a main, so 12 points of gear, now it's only 10 points of gear. So, slight nerf to comeback. And Ninja Squid will now nullify 20% of swim speed, so stacking swim speed to counteract Ninja Squid is a lot more difficult now. And now we move on to what I think is legitimately broken. Opening Gambit. While active, Opening Gambit's duration will be extended by 7.5 seconds for each opponent slatted by the player or each assist they are credited with. You can get infinite Opening Gambit now. That's a thing. If you're either a Slayer, or the person tossing out point sensors, or the person tossing out mist, or the armor bot, you could get in a pretty ridiculous chain of keeping yourself buffed for the entire game, giving yourself several gear abilities worth of buff for only 1 main. This is probably going to be nerfed because this is an ability, this is a way for teams that are already going to be dominating their opponents to be dominating them even more. Because with Opening Gambit, if you go in with a strong first push, completely wipe the team, start pushing, and then you send the person with Opening Gambit in, they'll be able to spawn camp even easier. That's what this does. It makes shutouts and locking someone in spawn with 1 person even easier. So, I don't know. I have a feeling it's not going to really change much in terms of more evenly matched teams, but mismatched teams are going to be even more ridiculous when the better team is the one with Opening Gambit. So, I don't know. I could see this being nerfed later. I'm going to have a lot of fun with it myself, though, so I'm not really complaining. But I didn't really give my overall thoughts on the patch at the beginning, and that's because I completely forgot to, but this is a very good patch. It's actually changing a bunch of things. It's making things better while also not nerfing things most of the time to the ground. It's only nerfing the best things in the current meta, like Stingray, while buffing things that aren't as used much. Granted, Chargers needed a bigger buff to be more useful, but Rollers are starting to get into it, and a few more underused things are getting buffs as well. So that's good. They're finally learning to patch things without... They're not doing what they usually did when something had to be nerfed, where, oh, we'll nerf it into the ground, so now no one wants to use it. They'll do it. They're doing it so, okay, it's less good than it was before, but still usable, so if you really liked using it more for more than just the fact that, oh, it's meta and it's good, it's still going to be useful, still going to be viable, while also increasing the viability of other things. So, that's very good. I need to start working on rank X because I didn't bother playing S plus solo because S plus solo is a joke. My highest is 9, so, and my lowest is 0. So I'm gonna need to get myself in that rank X pretty soon so I can start actually learning things in solo. But until next time, or until after you watch the Xenoblade patch thing that's coming out the same day, this is Luxon, signing off.